嗨，大家好，我是 Jenny， 欢迎来到沉思者 J。今天我要带你认识一位哲学界的传奇人物，他是当代最重要的哲学家之一。他用哲学的力量为弱势发声，他让古希腊的智慧在21世纪重新燃起光芒。他就是玛莎努斯鮑姆，一位被《纽约时报》称为美国最杰出女性哲学家的思想巨人。她的名字在哲学界几乎等同于一种承诺，那就是让哲学真正服务于人类的尊严。我们先从她的起点说起。1947年5月6日，玛莎·克雷文出生在纽约市。她的父亲乔治·克雷文是费城的律师，母亲贝蒂·华伦是一位室内设计师兼家庭主妇。听起来是个典型的精英家庭，但玛莎后来形容自己的成长环境，说那是一个充满东岸精英气息的世界，非常无趣，过度关注财富和社会地位。她说自己的父亲虽然才华洋溢，却也带着那个时代南方白人的偏见和傲慢。父亲甚至因为她后来嫁给一位犹太裔学者，而拒绝出席她的婚礼。这件事在她心里留下了深刻的痕迹，让她后来对一切排他主义和精英主义都保持着强烈的警觉和批判。但父亲也给了她一些珍贵的礼物，他热爱努力和意志力的精神。他常常朗读英国诗人威廉·亨利的诗作不屈，这首诗后来也成了南非自由斗士曼德拉最喜爱的诗。父亲朗读时眼中带着光，让小玛莎明白了一件事：努力本身可以是充满欢喜的，不是苦闷的忍耐，而是充实的活着。母亲则给了他另一种教育，教他尊重情感，教他无论对方的社会阶级如何，都要把每一个人视为完整的人来尊重。这个来自母亲的教导，后来深深嵌入了他整个哲学体系的核心。这种窒息感让年轻的玛莎渴望呼吸不一样的空气。中学时代，她进入宾州布林茅尔的鲍德温女校，这是一所顶尖的贵族女子学校。但玛莎的内心开始萌生反叛的种子，她越来越不相信一个人的价值是由出身和地位决定的。大学她去了卫斯理学院念书，念了2年之后，她做了一个惊人的决定，她放弃学业，跑去纽约追求戏剧梦。是的，你没听错，这位后来影响无数人的哲学家，年轻时是个想要站上舞台的演员。这段追梦的经历其实非常重要，因为玛莎在纽约大学修习戏剧和古典学。就在这个过程中，她和古希腊文学相遇了。她发现那些1000年前的悲剧故事，描写的竟然是最真实的人类处境：俄狄浦斯王的命运，安提戈涅的道德抉择，美狄亚的爱恨情仇。这些故事不是遥远的神话，他们是在问最根本的问题：什么是正义？什么是美好的生活？人类面对不可控的命运时能做什么？而哲学就藏在那些故事背后，在那悲喜交织的台词之中。1969年，他从纽约大学拿到文学士学位，接着进入哈佛大学继续深造。在哈佛，他的兴趣逐渐从戏剧转移到哲学。他开始认真思考一个问题：什么是好的生活？什么让人类真正繁盛？他遇到了启发他的老师们，也遇到了和他激烈辩论的同学们。哲学在他的生命中慢慢从兴趣变成使命。哈佛的训练让他打下深厚的古典哲学根基。他同时取得硕士和博士学位，主修古典语文学，博士论文研究亚里斯多德的生物运动理论。亚里斯多德，那位古希腊最伟大的哲学家，不只研究伦理和政治，他对生物学和心理学也有深刻的探索。玛莎从他的作品中看到了一种整体性的人类观，那个观点认为，人是身体和灵魂的整体，是社会动物，需要友谊，需要社群，需要情感，才能真正成为完整的人。从一个想当演员的女孩，到成为研究古代哲学的顶尖学者，这个转变说来也是一段美丽的故事。毕业后，她留在哈佛任教，这一待就是从70年代到80年代初期。她的课堂充满生命力，她把哲学和文学融合在一起，告诉学生，诗歌和悲剧并不只是文学作品，他们是在探索最深刻的伦理问题。 课堂上，他的学生被要求同时阅读柏拉图和索福克勒斯，同时分析哲学论证和戏剧台词。他相信伟大的文学和伟大的哲学一样，都在试图回答同样的问题。就在这个时期，他认识了艾伦努斯鲍姆，一位古典学者，两人相恋结婚。他从此冠上了努斯鲍姆这个姓，虽然后来婚姻没能走到最后，但这个姓名伴随着他的整个学术生涯，成为哲学界人人熟知的名字。然而哈佛的岁月并不全然美好。1982年，他在哈佛古典学系申请终身教职，结果遭到拒绝。这个打击对他来说非常沉重。哈佛的终身教职是许多学者梦寐以求的位置，而她是当时极少数的女性哲学学者之一。被拒绝的背后到底有多少偏见，我们今天难以全然评判，但可以确定的是，这件事让她更加坚定了一个信念：哲学不能只活在象牙塔里，哲学必须走入真实的世界。她离开哈佛前往布朗大学，在那里她继续发光发热。在布朗的岁月里，她的思想越发成熟。她也在这段时间与多位重要哲学家和学者深入交流。她的学生中，后来也诞生了不少出色的哲学家，包括哲学家琳达·马丁·阿尔考夫，以及后来成为知名演员和剧作家的提姆·布雷克尼尔逊。就在1986年，一本改变他命运的书诞生了，书名叫《做善的脆弱性》，副标题是运气与伦理在希腊悲剧和哲学中的问题。这本书探讨的核心问题非常迷人：人类追求美好生活的努力，真的能靠理性和意志力完全掌控吗？还是说我们永远脆弱地暴露在命运的风浪之中？他从索福克勒斯的悲剧中看到，英雄的高尚品格并不能保护他们免受厄运。俄狄浦斯越是努力逃避命运，却越是走向了命运。他从亚里士多德的伦理学中看到，真正的人类繁盛需要外部条件的配合。一个连基本温饱都不能保障的人，是无法充分发展德性的。他说，人类的好生活本来就是脆弱的，我们依赖朋友，依赖社群，依赖爱，那些超出我们控制的事物，才是让生命真实而深刻的根源。试图建立一种完全自给自足的好生活，不只是不可能的，更是误解了人类存在的本质。这本书让他一戏成名，在人文学界广受赞誉。纽约时报说他是思想界的明星，学术圈之外的读者也开始关注这位哲学家。1987年，他又做了一件让人印象深刻的事。当时保守派哲学家艾伦·布鲁姆出版了一本畅销书，叫做《美国心灵的封闭》。这本书主张美国大学教育走错了方向，批评多元文化主义和自由主义，在美国引发广泛讨论。许多人视之为振聋发聩的保守主义宣言，但玛莎不这么认为。他写了一篇毫不留情的批评文章，他直接质疑布鲁姆的哲学素养。他说，评估他是否算是一位哲学家，答案是我们没有任何理由认为他是。这篇文章让他一举成为公共知识界的焦点人物。人们开始知道，这位女哲学家不但思想深刻，而且毫不怯懦。1999年，他又写了一篇同样轰动的文章。他批评激进女性主义哲学家朱迪斯·巴特勒，批评她的哲学过于抽象，脱离了真实女性面对的具体困境：工资不平等、性骚扰、身体安全。努斯鲍姆说，真正的女性主义必须面对这些具体的问题，而不是沉溺在理论的游戏之中。这篇文章再次引发了学术界和公共知识界的激烈辩论。进入90年代，玛莎努斯鲍姆的思想持续深化，她越来越关注一个问题：在那个全球化快速推进的时代，如何定义正义？如何衡量人的福祉？她开始和另一位思想巨人合作，那就是印度裔的诺贝尔经济学奖得主阿马蒂亚森。两人不只有学术上的合作关系，他们之间也有一段深刻的私人情谊。在共同思考人类福祉的问题上，他们相互激发了彼此最好的思想火花。这段学术与个人的交汇，留下了影响深远的思想遗产。 阿马蒂亚森提出了一个叫做能力取向的思考框架。这个框架从经济学的角度出发，试图重新定义什么是真正的发展，不是看国内生产总值，不是看平均收入，而是看每个人是否具备真正实现自己潜能的能力。玛莎把这个框架发展到了一个全新的高度，她从哲学和伦理学的视角出发，提出了她自己版本的能力取向理论。她列出了一份清单，包含了她认为人类生活中最核心的10种能力。第一，能够活到正常寿命，不英年早逝，能够真正活过完整的一生。第二，拥有健康的身体，包括生育能力、充分的营养、适当的居所。第三，身体不受侵犯的自主性，能够自由移动，免于被暴力侵害。第四，能够使用感官思考和想象，能够读写和算术，能够接触宗教或文学，能够以真正人性化的方式使用自己的心灵。第五，能够感受情感，能够爱，能够悲伤，能够感受感恩和正当的愤慨。第六，能够运用实践理性规划自己的生命，能够思考什么是美好的生活，能够有批判性地反思自己的人生计划。第七，能够与他人共同生活，能够关怀他人，能够感受社会互动，能够被当作有尊严有价值的人对待。第八，能够与其他生物和自然界和谐共存，能够关怀动物，关怀植物，关怀整个自然界。第九，能够玩耍，能够笑，能够游戏，能够享受娱乐活动。第十，能够掌握自己的政治和物质环境，能够有效参与政治生活，能够持有财产，能够在平等基础上寻求就业。这10种核心能力，他认为是每个人类尊严所不可或缺的基础。任何政治制度和社会政策都必须以保障这些能力为基本目标，而且必须针对每一个个人，不能用群体的平均值来掩盖个人的匮乏。1995年，他加入了芝加哥大学法学院，同时在哲学系任教。这个跨越法律与哲学的位置非常特别，它完全符合他的信念。哲学应该成为人类的律师，应该走入法庭，走入政策制定的现场，真正改变现实世界。他确实也这样做了。1992年，他在科罗拉多州的一场法律诉讼中担任专家证人。那是一场关于性别认同和平等权利的重要案件，叫做罗莫诉伊文斯案。科罗拉多州有人希望通过修宪，撤销保护性少数群体免受歧视的地方法律，而他们的论据之一是说哲学史上充满了支持这种反对态度的依据。玛莎站在法庭上反驳了这个论点，他用他对古希腊哲学文本的深刻理解，逐一拆解那些所谓的哲学依据。这个案子最终上诉到美国最高法院，并以反对歧视的判决落幕，而玛莎的哲学论述也在其中发挥了影响。1997年，他出版了另一本重要作品，叫做《培育人性》。这本书是对博雅教育的有力辩护。他认为苏格拉底的精神在今天的大学课堂中仍然至关重要，那就是自我审视的精神，批判性的思考自己和自己所在的社会。他说民主社会需要3种能力的公民，第一是批判性的自我审视能力，第二是理解自己是世界公民的能力，第三是叙事想象力，也就是能够设想自己身处完全不同处境的能力。这种叙事想象力是民主的根基，是人类共存的桥梁。2001年，他出版了《思想的激荡》，英文书名叫做 Upheavals of Thought。这是一本深入探讨情绪哲学本质的巨著。他认为情绪不是非理性的干扰，情绪是具有认知内容的知识回应。我们的悲伤告诉我们什么对我们重要，我们的愤慨告诉我们什么违反了我们的价值观。情绪是我们对价值的感知。他用了全书相当大的篇幅探讨悲痛，这很私人。他自己的母亲就在写作这本书的期间去世。他把这段失去亲人的经历融入了对悲伤的哲学分析中，这让这本原本就深刻的哲学著作多了一种人间真实的温度。这个观点颠覆了很多人的直觉， 许多人觉得理性和情感是对立的，冷静思考才是对的，情绪是需要克制的弱点。但努斯鲍姆说不，一个没有同理心的道德判断，一个不能感受悲悯的伦理推理，是残缺不全的。情绪是伦理生活的一部分，而不是它的障碍。2004年，他出版了《从人性中躲藏》，探讨羞耻和厌恶在法律和道德中的角色。他论证说，厌恶这种情绪常常被用来歧视边缘群体，用一种伪装成道德的方式，把某些人说成是污秽的，是不洁的，是不值得被当作完整人类对待的。这种机制在历史上被用来压迫犹太人，压迫女性，压迫性少数群体。他说，我们应该对这种情绪保持警惕，用同理心和共同人性的意识来取而代之。2006年，他出版了《正义的边疆》。这本书把能力取向理论延伸到了3个传统正义论难以处理的群体。第一是残障者。传统社会契约论假设所有人都能够进行平等的理性交换，但残障者往往被排除在这个假设之外。第二是其他国家的人。传统正义论往往以国家边界为范畴，但为什么我对远方陌生人的苦难没有正义义务呢？第三是非人类动物。努斯鲍姆认为动物也具备能力，也应该享有在某个程度上受到正义保护的地位。这本书把正义的边界大幅拓展，让许多人重新思考正义的本质。2010年，他出版了《不是为了利润》。这本书直指他心中最深刻的忧虑。全球的教育体系正在发生一场危机，各国政府越来越只关注经济指标，把教育当成培养劳动力的工具。人文学科被砍，艺术课程被缩减，哲学被视为无用。但努斯鲍姆说，这是在自毁民主的根基。一个不能独立思考的公民，一个没有同理心的社会，是很容易被操弄走向极端的。他说，历史上无数的暴政都是在公民缺乏批判性思考能力的土壤中滋生的。这本书在全球掀起广泛讨论，许多国家的教育界人士和政策制定者都受到启发。他的声音成为捍卫人文教育最有力的声音之一。在个人生活方面，玛莎努斯鲍姆也有很多值得一说的故事。他热爱歌剧，曾经与芝加哥抒情歌剧院的总监一起开设歌剧与哲学的课程，探讨歌剧作为一种哲学艺术形式的意义。他也是一位马拉松跑者，这让我想到一个很有趣的画面，一位探讨人类情感与正义的哲学家，同时也在凌晨的街道上努力奔跑，好像在用身体实践某种对生命的热忱。他曾经和大法学家凯斯桑斯坦有超过10年的深刻感情，他们甚至订了婚，但最终没有走入婚姻。这段感情的结束让他深受打击，但他并没有从此逃避，他反而更深入地去思考爱与脆弱性之间的关系，思考什么是真正的情感成熟。这种把个人经历转化为哲学思考的能力，正是他作为思想家的独特力量之一。2016年，他获得了京都奖，这是日本最重要的国际学术奖项之一，颁给在艺术与哲学领域做出杰出贡献的学者。2018年，他获得柏格鲁恩奖，奖金超过100万美元，被称为哲学界的诺贝尔奖。2021年，他获得霍尔贝格奖。2022年，他获得巴拉赞奖。他已经获得了来自全球69所大学和学院的名誉学位，这些荣耀是哲学世界对他终身贡献的致敬。2019年，他经历了一生中最心碎的时刻。他的女儿瑞秋因为难以控制的感染，在一场成功的器官移植手术后不幸离世。瑞秋也是一位社会运动者，致力于动物保护工作，曾在一个非营利动物保护组织担任政府事务律师。母女2人甚至共同发表过论文，探讨野生动物的权利与福祉。这个失去是难以言说的痛苦，但他选择继续前行，继续思考，继续书写，因为那是他对生命的信仰。近年他继续出版重要著作。2016年的《愤怒与原谅》探讨愤怒、悲痛和宽恕的哲学。他提出了一个非常精彩的论点：传统上我们认为愤怒是一种正义的情绪，当我们被伤害时， 感到愤怒是自然的，报复是公正的。但努斯鲍姆说不，愤怒背后隐藏着一种危险的逻辑，那就是让对方受苦能够弥补我所受的伤害。但这个逻辑是有问题的，你的痛苦并不因为对方受苦而减少。真正有建设性的回应，是他所说的转型之怒，不是报复，而是问自己，这样的事情不应该再发生，我能做什么来让这个世界变得更好？这种向前看的愤怒，才是推动正义的真正力量。2018年，他出版了《恐惧的君主》，探讨恐惧如何感染民主政治生活。他认为，当公民被恐惧主导的时候，很容易被政治人物操弄，走向排外和仇恨。真正健康的民主需要的不是无所恐惧，而是对恐惧有自觉的清醒。2021年，他出版了《傲慢的城堡》，深入探讨性侵害的根源和修复正义的可能。他把古希腊对骄傲和羞辱的分析运用到当代的性别暴力问题上，提出了比单纯惩罚更深刻的社会疗愈方式。玛莎努斯鲍姆的思想为什么如此重要？我想从几个角度来说。第一，他让哲学从书房走向了街头，他亲身出席法庭，亲身参与政策辩论，他用哲学的力量为弱势者说话，他相信哲学家应该是全人类的律师。第二，他重新定义了什么是正义。传统的正义论往往建立在理性契约的基础上，假设所有人都是平等的，有能力进行理性交换，但这个假设排除了很多人，残障者、穷人、被压迫的女性、非人类的动物。努斯鲍姆的能力取向理论把这些人都纳入了正义的考量范围。第三，他重新为情感平反。在一个崇尚冷静理性的哲学传统中，他大声说出，情绪是有意义的，情绪是人类道德生活不可分割的一部分，没有悲悯的伦理学是残缺的。第四，他为博雅教育竖起了一面旗帜。在全球教育向职业化倾斜的大潮流中，他持续提醒我们，民主需要能够思考的人，不是只会生产的人。他的一生告诉我们，哲学不是远离人间烟火的冥想，哲学是直面人间苦难的勇气，是要问，什么样的生活值得过？什么样的社会值得建立？每一个人，无论贫富强弱，都值得拥有真正开花的机会。玛莎努斯鲍姆今年77岁，他仍然在芝加哥大学任教，仍然书写，仍然思考，仍然在哲学的战场上热情参战。他已经出版超过25本书，编辑了另外21本书，发表了数不清的学术论文和公共评论文章。他从一个想要站上舞台的少女，走到了这个世界最重要的哲学殿堂。从古希腊悲剧的台词中，他找到了自己的使命，那就是为了人类的尊严和繁盛，永不停止思考和发声。谢谢你今天和我一起认识了这位伟大的思想家。如果你也被他的故事感动，请分享给你在乎的人。我们下次见咯。Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Thinker J. Today I want to introduce you to a truly legendary figure in the world of philosophy. She is one of the most important philosophers of our time. She uses the power of philosophy to speak for the most vulnerable people in society. She breathes new life into the ancient wisdom of Greece in the 21st century. Her name is Martha Nussbaum. The New York Times called her the most prominent female philosopher in America. And today, we are going to explore the remarkable story behind that extraordinary title. Let us begin at the very beginning. On May 6, 1947, Martha Craven was born in New York City. Her father, George Craven, was a Philadelphia lawyer. Her mother, Betty Warren, was an interior designer and homemaker. From the outside, it looked like a picture-perfect elite family. They lived in a wealthy neighborhood. They moved in circles of well-dressed, well-connected people. They attended the right events and sent their children to the right schools. But Martha would later describe her upbringing with sharp and memorable clarity. She said it was what she called the East Coast WASP elite world. Very sterile, she said, and deeply preoccupied with money and social status. There was something suffocating about that world, and that feeling would shape everything that came next. Her father was a complicated figure in her life. He was a man who loved effort and discipline. He often recited the poem Invictus by the English poet William Ernest Henley. That same poem was a lifelong favorite of Nelson Mandela. Her father recited it with a twinkle in his eye. Not as a declaration of grim endurance, but as a celebration of the joy of living fully. That lesson stayed with Martha. The idea that effort could be joyful, not painful. That striving and delight could run together in the same life. But her father also carried the prejudices of his time and place. He had been born and raised in Georgia before the civil rights era. When Martha married a Jewish scholar, he refused to attend the wedding. That rejection left a deep mark on her. It became one of the seeds of her lifelong resistance to elitism, exclusion, and any group that sets itself up as superior to others. She would later say that her entire career was in some ways a repudiation of the aristocratic values she had been raised among. Her mother gave her something quite different. She taught Martha to respect emotions as a valid source of wisdom. She taught her to treat every person with dignity, regardless of their social class. That lesson from her mother would eventually become embedded in the very foundation of Martha Nussbaum's philosophical system. As a teenager, Martha attended the Baldwin School in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. It was a prestigious all-girls preparatory school. The more polished her environment became, the more restless she grew inside. She was beginning to question everything she was supposed to take for granted. She enrolled at Wellesley College for her university education. Wellesley is one of the most respected liberal arts colleges in the United States. It has a long history of educating women who go on to do remarkable things in every field. But after 2 years, Martha made a decision that surprised everyone around her. She dropped out. She packed her bags and headed to New York City to pursue theater. Yes, you heard that correctly. The woman who would one day become one of the most celebrated philosophers in the world started out chasing a dream on the stage. This detour into the performing arts turned out to be far from a detour at all. At New York University, she studied theater and classics side by side. And it was there, in those ancient Greek texts, that something fundamental clicked for her. She discovered that the tragedies written more than 2,000 years ago were describing the most truthful and urgent human conditions imaginable. The fate of Oedipus, destroyed despite his nobility and intelligence. The moral dilemma of Antigone, forced to choose between human law and divine duty. The consuming passion of Medea, love transformed into something terrifying. These were not distant myths. They were asking the most fundamental questions a human being can face. What is justice? What makes a life worth living? What can human beings do when forces beyond their control threaten everything they love? Philosophy, she realized, was not hiding in dry academic treatises. It was alive in those dramatic stories, in every line of dialogue. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree from New York University in 1969. Then she entered Harvard University for her graduate studies. At Harvard, her intellectual focus gradually shifted from theater to philosophy. She was now wrestling seriously with a question that would define her entire career. What does it mean to live a genuinely good life? What allows human beings to truly flourish? She encountered professors who challenged her deeply. She encountered peers who pushed back against her ideas with equal force. Philosophy was becoming, for her, not just an interest but a vocation. Harvard gave her a rigorous classical training. She earned both her master's degree and her PhD there. Her doctoral research focused on the work of Aristotle, the towering ancient Greek thinker. Aristotle studied not just ethics and politics but also biology and what we would now call psychology. Martha saw in his work a deeply integrated vision of what human beings are. We are not just rational minds, in the way that some later philosophers imagined. We are embodied creatures with emotions, social needs, and deep dependencies on each other. We need friendship. We need community. We need love. Only with those things can we fully become what we are capable of being. From a girl who had dreamed of performing on stage, to a scholar decoding the wisdom of ancient philosophers. It was, in its own way, a beautiful transformation. After completing her doctorate, she joined the Harvard faculty. She taught there through the 1970s and into the early 1980s. Her classroom had an unusual and compelling energy. She wove together philosophy and literature in ways that few had attempted before. She told her students that Greek poetry and tragedy were not simply works of art. They were explorations of the deepest ethical questions human beings face. Her students were required to read Plato and Sophocles together, to analyze philosophical arguments and dramatic dialogue in the same breath. She believed that great literature and great philosophy were asking the same questions, just in different languages. One colleague recalled that attending her lectures was unlike any philosophical experience they had ever had. She made ideas feel urgent. She made the ancient world feel alive. She had a gift for showing how a problem that had troubled a philosopher in ancient Athens was still unresolved and still consequential in the present day. It was during this period that she met Alan Nussbaum, a classicist. They fell in love and married. She took the name Nussbaum. Though the marriage eventually ended, that name stayed with her. And today it is recognized in philosophy circles all around the world. But her years at Harvard were not without pain. In 1982, she applied for tenure in the classics department. She was denied. The rejection was a serious and deeply felt blow. Tenure at Harvard was the dream of countless academics. She was one of only a very small number of women philosophers at that level. How much bias shaped that decision, we cannot say with full certainty today. But what we can say is that the experience deepened a conviction she already carried. Philosophy must not be locked inside ivory towers. Philosophy must step into the real world and do real, meaningful work. She left Harvard and moved to Brown University. At Brown, she continued to develop and deepen her thinking. The atmosphere was different there. She found colleagues who were genuinely excited by interdisciplinary work, who were willing to blur the boundaries between philosophy, classics, and literary studies. It was a productive and energizing environment. During those years, her students included the philosopher Linda Martin Alcoff and the actor and playwright Tim Blake Nelson, who would go on to become well known in film and theater. Her classroom was a place where brilliant things happened. Students remembered her as demanding but also extraordinarily generous with her time and ideas. She pushed her students to think harder, and she modeled what that looked like. Then in 1986, a book was born that would change her life and her standing in the intellectual world. It was titled The Fragility of Goodness. The subtitle was Luck and Ethics in Greek Tragedy and Philosophy. The central question of this book was breathtaking in its ambition. Can human beings achieve a good life through reason and willpower alone? Or are we always vulnerable, exposed to forces completely beyond our control? She drew from the tragedies of Sophocles and the philosophy of Aristotle. She drew from the deep well of ancient Greek wisdom. And she offered a powerful and somewhat unsettling answer. Human flourishing is fragile by nature. We depend on friendship. We depend on community. We depend on love. The things that lie beyond our personal control. Those are precisely what make life real and meaningful. To try to achieve a completely self-sufficient good life is not just impossible. It fundamentally misses the point of what being human means. This book made her famous almost overnight in the academic world. It was praised enthusiastically across the humanities. The New York Times celebrated her as an intellectual star. Readers far beyond academic circles began to pay close attention. Then in 1987, she did something that announced herself as a genuine and fearless public intellectual. Conservative philosopher Alan Bloom had just published a best-selling book. It was titled The Closing of the American Mind. The book argued that American universities had lost their way. It launched a fierce attack on multiculturalism, feminism, and liberal reforms in education. Many people treated it as a landmark conservative manifesto. But Martha Nussbaum was not convinced. She wrote a devastating critical review. She challenged whether Bloom could be considered a serious philosopher at all. The piece made waves far beyond academia. People now knew beyond any doubt that this female philosopher was not only deep in thought. She was also completely fearless in debate. Then in 1999 she wrote another equally explosive piece. She took on the influential radical feminist philosopher Judith Butler, criticizing her philosophy as dangerously abstract and disconnected from the real lives of real women. Wage inequality, sexual harassment, physical safety. Nussbaum argued that a feminism worth the name must engage with these concrete, pressing realities. It cannot afford to disappear into theoretical games. This piece generated fierce debate in academia and in the broader world of ideas. And it showed once again that Martha Nussbaum was willing to challenge anyone she believed was failing to do philosophy properly. Through the 1990s, her thinking continued to deepen and expand. She became increasingly focused on a central challenge of that era of rapid globalization. How do we define justice across national borders? How do we measure human well-being in a way that is truly meaningful and inclusive? This led her to a remarkable collaboration with one of the most brilliant minds in economics, Indian Nobel Prize laureate Amartya Sen. Their relationship was both deeply intellectual and personally significant. Two extraordinary thinkers in ongoing conversation, each pushing the other toward new and more precise ideas. The ideas they developed together would eventually influence development policy, human rights frameworks, and philosophical debates around the world. Sen had developed a framework called the capabilities approach. It argued that economic development should not be measured by income or GDP alone. What matters is whether people have the real and genuine ability to live the kinds of lives they have reason to value. Martha took this framework and transformed it into something philosophically richer and more precise. She proposed her own version of the capabilities approach. She created a carefully considered list of what she called central human capabilities. The capability to live a life of normal length, reaching old age without being cut off early. To enjoy good health, adequate nutrition, and appropriate shelter. To have bodily integrity, to move freely without fear of violence or coercion. To use one's senses, thought, and imagination in a genuinely human way, protected by guarantees of freedom. To experience and express emotions, including love, grief, gratitude, and rightful indignation. To exercise practical reason, to plan one's own life according to one's own deepest values and commitments. To live with and toward other people, in genuine social connection and mutual recognition as equals. To live with concern for and in relation to other animal species and the natural world. To play, to laugh, to enjoy recreational activities. To have control over one's political and material environment, including the right to vote and to hold property. What makes this list so philosophically significant? Notice that it is not just a list of needs. It is a list of active powers. The capability to use your senses. The capability to love. The capability to think critically and plan. These are not things that happen to you. They are things you do, or are enabled to do. Nussbaum insists that justice is about ensuring that people can genuinely do these things. Not just in principle, but in practice. A woman who is technically free to vote, but who cannot leave her house without her husband's permission, does not have the capability to participate in political life. A child who is technically free to pursue an education, but who must work to feed his family, does not have the capability to develop his mind. The capabilities approach looks past formal freedoms to ask about real, substantive opportunities. And it demands that every person, not just the average, meets the threshold. These 10 capabilities, she argued, represent the minimum threshold of human dignity. Any political arrangement, any social policy, must be evaluated by whether it protects and actively supports these capabilities for every person. And the evaluation must be done at the individual level. You cannot hide individual deprivation behind group averages. Every single person deserves to be seen. In 1995 she joined the faculty of the University of Chicago Law School. She was appointed jointly in the law school and the philosophy department. This unusual position was a perfect match for her deepest conviction. She believed that philosophers should think of themselves as lawyers for humanity. They should enter courtrooms. They should work in policy rooms. They should put their thinking in the service of concrete human lives. And she did not just preach this. She lived it. In 1992, she served as an expert witness in a Colorado state court case. It was a landmark case involving equality rights and the rights of sexual minorities, known as Romer versus Evans. Colorado had a ballot initiative that sought to overturn local anti-discrimination protections. One argument made in support of this initiative was that the history of philosophy provided justification for such a position. Martha Nussbaum stood in that courtroom and systematically dismantled that argument. Using her extraordinary knowledge of ancient Greek philosophical texts, she showed that the history of philosophy did no such thing. The case eventually went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and the court ruled against the discriminatory measure. In 1997 she published Cultivating Humanity. It was a passionate and meticulously argued defense of liberal arts education. She argued that the spirit of Socrates was urgently needed in today's university classrooms. The spirit of critical self-examination, of questioning assumptions, of genuinely engaging with perspectives very different from your own. She said a democracy needs citizens with 3 core capacities. First, the ability to critically examine themselves and their society. Second, the ability to see themselves as citizens of the world, not just of one nation. Third, what she called narrative imagination. The ability to imaginatively inhabit the perspective of someone whose life is very different from your own. This capacity, she insisted, is not a luxury or an ornament. It is the foundation of democratic coexistence. It is the bridge that allows human beings to live together across their many differences. As the new century arrived, her productivity only accelerated. In 2001 she published the monumental book Upheavals of Thought. It is a philosophical examination of the nature and moral significance of the emotions. The book is over 700 pages long. It ranges across Aristotle, the Stoics, Marcel Proust, and contemporary psychology. She argued systematically that emotions are not irrational disturbances to be suppressed. Emotions are intelligent responses to our perception of value. Our grief tells us what we love and what we have lost. Our indignation tells us what we believe is wrong and unjust. Our fear tells us what we value and what threatens it. Emotions are ways of knowing about what matters in the world. They carry what philosophers call intentional content. They are about something. They represent the world in a particular way. And that representational content can be more or less accurate, more or less responsive to reason. This means emotions can be educated. You can work with your emotions, understand them, redirect them. But you cannot simply bypass them and expect to be fully moral. Because without emotions, you would lack the very perception of value that moral reasoning requires. She dedicated a large portion of this book to an exploration of grief. This was deeply personal for her. Her mother had died while she was in the middle of writing it. She wove her own experience of loss into her philosophical analysis, giving this already profound philosophical work a quality of human warmth that made it unforgettable. This was a radical challenge to a long tradition in Western philosophy. For centuries, many thinkers had treated reason and emotion as opposites. Calm rational thought was seen as the reliable path to truth. Feelings were treated as noise, as interference, as things to be filtered out. But Nussbaum argued that a moral judgment completely stripped of compassion, an ethical system incapable of feeling sympathy for suffering, is at best incomplete and at worst morally dangerous. The emotions are not the enemy of the ethical life. They are an essential and irreplaceable part of it. In 2004 she published Hiding from Humanity, exploring how emotions like disgust and shame function in law and in moral reasoning. She showed in meticulous historical and philosophical detail how disgust has been used as a weapon against marginalized groups throughout history. It functions as a kind of moral camouflage, making certain people appear dirty, polluting, somehow less than fully human. This mechanism was used against Jewish people across centuries of persecution. It was used against women to justify their exclusion from public life. It was and continues to be used against sexual minorities. She argued that we need to become deeply vigilant about disgust-based reasoning wherever it appears in law, and replace it with reasoning grounded in empathy and a clear recognition of our shared humanity. In 2006 she published Frontiers of Justice. This book extended the capabilities approach to three groups that traditional theories of justice had systematically failed. People with cognitive disabilities, whose needs challenge the fiction of the equal rational contractor. People in developing countries, who are excluded from theories that stop at national borders. And non-human animals, who have capabilities of their own and whose interests deserve moral consideration. This book pushed the boundaries of what justice could and should mean. In 2010 she published Not for Profit, Why Democracy Needs the Humanities. This addressed what she saw as a deep and globally dangerous crisis in education. Governments around the world were becoming obsessed with economic metrics, treating education as a machine for producing workers and increasing national productivity. The humanities were being defunded. Arts programs were being cut. Philosophy was being dismissed as impractical and irrelevant. But Nussbaum argued that this was nothing less than democratic self-destruction. A society that cannot think independently, a citizenry incapable of empathy, is dangerously vulnerable to manipulation, demagoguery, and the rise of extremism. She drew on history to show that civic catastrophe tends to arise in precisely those conditions. The book sparked urgent conversations in education ministries and universities across the world. Her voice became one of the most powerful and influential in the global defense of humanistic education. On a personal level, Martha Nussbaum has a life as vivid and full as any she has written about. She is a devoted opera lover. She co-taught a course with the former general director of Lyric Opera of Chicago, exploring the philosophical and humanistic dimensions of this ancient art form. She is also a marathon runner. There is something wonderful about that image. A philosopher who spends her working hours untangling the most intricate questions of human life, and then runs through the early morning streets with the same fierce commitment and energy, as if embodying in her body the very commitment to full human flourishing she advocates in her writing. She shared more than a decade of deep and significant companionship with legal scholar Cass Sunstein. They were engaged to be married, but ultimately their relationship did not lead to marriage. She had also previously shared a deep relationship with the economist and philosopher Amartya Sen. These personal experiences of love, connection, and loss did not lead her to retreat from thinking about the emotions and human vulnerability. They deepened and enriched her philosophical engagement with those very themes. Her ability to draw from her own life in service of understanding the human condition is one of the qualities that makes her philosophy feel so real and so true. In 2016 she received the Kyoto Prize in Arts and Philosophy, one of Japan's most prestigious international honors for scholarly achievement, awarded by the Inamori Foundation to those who have made outstanding contributions to the advancement of human knowledge. In 2018 she received the Berggruen Prize for Philosophy and Culture. With a prize of over $1 million, it is often described as a Nobel Prize equivalent for philosophy. In 2021 she received the Hallberg Prize, awarded for outstanding contributions to the humanities, social sciences, law, and theology. In 2022 she received the Balzan Prize. She has received honorary degrees from 69 universities and colleges around the world. Each of these honors is a recognition of the transformative and enduring reach of her thinking. Then in 2019 came one of the most heartbreaking events of her life. Her daughter Rachel, a government affairs attorney who worked in the wildlife division of a non-profit animal welfare organization, died following complications from a drug-resistant infection after what had appeared to be a successful organ transplant. Martha and Rachel had collaborated academically. They had co-authored papers exploring the ethics of wild animal rights. To lose a daughter, a collaborator, and a friend, all in one, was a grief almost beyond words. But Martha chose to continue, to keep thinking, to keep writing, because that choice, she understood, is itself a form of faith in the value of human life. In recent years she has continued to produce deeply important work. Her book titled Anger and Forgiveness challenged widely held assumptions about anger and retributive justice. She argued that the core emotional logic behind revenge, the belief that making someone suffer can repair the harm they caused you, is philosophically incoherent. Your pain does not diminish when the person who hurt you is made to suffer. She introduced the concept of what she called transition anger. Not retribution, but the constructive, forward-looking impulse that says, "This is wrong, this should not happen, and I am going to work to make things better." That is the kind of anger that actually serves justice. Her book titled The Monarchy of Fear examined how fear infects modern democratic political life. She argued that when citizens are dominated by fear, they become easy prey for political leaders who offer scapegoats. Genuine democratic health requires not fearlessness, but a clear-eyed, self-aware relationship with fear and its sources. And her book titled Citadels of Pride addressed the roots of sexual assault and the possibilities of accountability and healing. Drawing on her philosophical analysis of shame, dignity, and pride, she proposed ways of thinking about justice that go beyond punishment, toward genuine social repair. So why does the thought of Martha Nussbaum matter so deeply and so urgently? Let me offer a few angles on that question. First, she brought philosophy out of the library and into the real world. She appeared in courtrooms as an expert witness. She engaged in policy debates. She wrote for newspapers and magazines as well as academic journals. She appeared on PBS television. She was featured in major photography books. Oprah Winfrey counted herself as a fan. Deepak Chopra cited her work. She used philosophical tools to speak clearly and powerfully for those who had been excluded from the conversation. She believed, and consistently lived the belief, that a philosopher must be an advocate for all of humanity. Philosophy at its best is not a private hobby for professional thinkers. It is a public practice in service of the common good. Second, she fundamentally redefined what justice means. Traditional theories of justice were often built on the idea of a rational social contract, assuming all parties are essentially equal, capable of rational exchange and mutual agreement. But that assumption leaves out an enormous number of people. People with severe disabilities. People living in poverty. Women who have been systematically denied opportunity. Non-human animals. Her capabilities approach insists that justice must extend to all of these beings without exception. It also insists that justice is not just about distributing resources. It is about ensuring that every person has the real, genuine ability to live a life of human dignity. That is a much higher and more demanding standard. And it is the right standard. Third, she rehabilitated the emotions. In a philosophical tradition that had often treated cold reasoning as the gold standard of knowledge, she stood up and argued with clarity and persuasion that emotions carry genuine cognitive meaning. That emotions are an essential and irreplaceable part of the moral life. That an ethics incapable of compassion is not just incomplete but fundamentally deficient. This insight has had implications far beyond philosophy. It has influenced psychology, legal theory, political theory, and education. The idea that emotional development and moral development are deeply intertwined is now taken seriously in ways it was not before she made the case so powerfully. Fourth, she defended the humanities at a moment when they were under serious and sustained threat. As global education systems tilted ever more decisively toward vocational training and economic metrics, she kept reminding us that democracy requires thinking people, not just productive ones. That the capacity to imagine another person's experience is not a luxury but a democratic necessity. She gave educators and parents and students the philosophical vocabulary to make the case for the arts, literature, philosophy, and history, not as ornaments to a good life, but as essential equipment for a democratic one. Her life tells us that philosophy is not a retreat from the human condition. Philosophy is a commitment to face the human condition with courage and clarity. It is the refusal to stop asking, what kind of life is worth living? What kind of society is worth building? And the insistence that every human being, no matter how weak, how marginalized, how forgotten, deserves a genuine opportunity to flourish. Martha Nussbaum is now 77 years old. She continues to teach at the University of Chicago. She continues to write. She continues to think. She continues to fight with passion and precision on the philosophical battlefield. She has authored more than 25 books and edited another 21. She has published countless academic articles and essays in major public outlets. From a young girl who dreamed of standing on a stage, to one of the most important philosophical voices of our era. From the tragedies of ancient Greece, she found her mission to never stop thinking and speaking on behalf of human dignity, to insist that every person, in every corner of the world, deserves the conditions in which they can truly come alive. I want to close by reflecting on something that Martha Nussbaum once said about the purpose of philosophy. She said that philosophy should be like a doctor, not a doctor who merely describes the symptoms of the patient, but one who actually works to cure them. Ancient philosophy, she reminded us, was always understood as a practice, not just a theory. It was a way of living, a way of examining one's life and improving it, a way of making oneself and one's community more capable of genuine flourishing. That vision of philosophy as medicine for the soul, and medicine for the body politic, is what drives her. When she walked into that courtroom in Colorado in 1992, she was not performing philosophy. She was doing it. When she stood before international development organizations and argued that their metrics were leaving real people out of the picture, she was not describing a problem. She was trying to solve it. When she wrote not-for-profit and sent copies to education ministers around the world, she was trying, with all the tools available to a philosopher, to change the course of a global crisis. There is also something deeply moving about the continuity of her engagement with ancient thought. Most of us think of ancient Greek philosophy as a museum piece, something we might study in school, appreciate abstractly, and then move on from. But for Martha Nussbaum, Aristotle and Sophocles are living conversation partners. Their questions are our questions. Their insights are still generative and necessary. The tragedy of Oedipus is still a more honest account of human vulnerability than most modern self-help books. Aristotle's insistence that human beings are social animals who need love and community to flourish is more scientifically accurate than many modern theories of rational self-interest. She keeps those ancient voices alive by showing us that they are speaking directly to our present. And there is something that I personally find very striking about her approach to the emotions. We live in a world that is deeply confused about feelings. On one side, there are those who say we should follow our feelings wherever they lead. That authenticity means acting on whatever emotion arises. On the other side, there are those who say we should suppress and override our feelings with cold calculation. That the rational and the emotional are at war, and rationality must always win. Martha Nussbaum says both of these are wrong. Emotions are not infallible guides. They can be distorted by fear, prejudice, and false beliefs. But they are not noise to be eliminated either. They carry real information about value. They can be educated, refined, and redirected. A well-developed emotional life, informed by good thinking and genuine understanding of other people, is one of the most important things a human being can cultivate. And a just society is one that creates conditions in which everyone can cultivate it. I also want to say something about her courage. It takes genuine intellectual courage to take on giants of your own field. To write publicly that a popular and powerful thinker is wrong, and to do it with full philosophical rigor. It takes a different kind of courage to step outside the academy, to appear in a courtroom, to testify before legislators, to write books that are meant for a general audience, not just specialists. Many philosophers retreat from this kind of exposure. It is safer and easier to write for your peers. Martha Nussbaum went the other way. She chose the harder path, again and again. And because she did, her ideas have touched millions of people who will never read a scholarly journal. Their lives are a little more in focus, because of her willingness to go public with what she knows. There is also something particularly timely about her work in the world we inhabit today. We live in an era of deep political polarization, of rising authoritarianism, of attacks on press freedom, on academic freedom, on democratic norms. In The Monarchy of Fear, she diagnoses one of the key mechanisms behind these developments. Fear, she argues, is the emotion that is most easily weaponized by demagogues. Fear closes down the imagination. It makes people less able to see the humanity in those who are different. It makes them reach for simple, often violent solutions to complex problems. The antidote, she suggests, is not courage in the abstract. It is the specific kind of imagination that she has spent her career defending. The ability to understand other people's lives from the inside. The ability to see through the distortions that fear creates. That imaginative capacity is the philosophical and emotional infrastructure of democracy. And we need it now more than we have in a very long time. One more thing before we close. She has received dozens of honorary degrees and the most prestigious prizes in the philosophical world. But I think the most important measure of her legacy is the number of people whose circumstances have been even slightly improved. Because someone used her capabilities framework to argue for better policy. Or because someone was persuaded by her arguments to fund a humanities program that would otherwise have been cut. Or because a judge somewhere was influenced, directly or indirectly, by her philosophical work on dignity and equal protection. That is the legacy of a public philosopher. Not the awards, but the changed minds and the changed worlds. Martha Nussbaum has earned a place among the great philosophers of any era. She stands alongside Aristotle, whom she has spent a lifetime interpreting. Not as a figure from the past, but as a living participant in the same ancient and ongoing conversation. The conversation about what we owe each other. About what it means to live well and to let others live well. About what a society looks like when it takes every human being seriously. That conversation is never finished. And as long as Martha Nussbaum keeps thinking and writing, it will be richer and truer for her presence in it. Thank you for joining me today to discover the remarkable story of this extraordinary thinker. If her story moved you, please share it with someone you care about. See you next time.